Welcome to Forever Seeking, the Notre Dame Prep Alumni Speaker Series presented by the Forever Saints Alumni Association. I'm Jenny Douglas, NDP's Annual Campaigns and Alumni Engagement Coordinator. As Saints, we are forever seeking. This series features NDP community members who share how their involvement with NDP has impacted their lives and their ongoing search for wisdom, truth, knowledge, justice, and understanding. Today we are joined by NDP alumnus Keegan Luther, who will be hosting Jayce Henderson, NDP's Media Content Specialist, NDP Live Moderator, and Digital Video Instructor. Keegan Luther was a part of the Notre Dame Prep class of 2016 and went on to study filmmaking at Arizona State University, where he graduated from in 2020. He is the CEO and one of the founders of Random Stuff Entertainment, a film company dedicated to promoting young and upcoming filmmakers who produce inspiring content. Keegan is currently pursuing a career in writing for television. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Laporte family in memory of Keegan's mother, Kelly Luther, who was always so proud of her children. We reflect on her life with great fondness and are grateful for the many things she did for our community. Her love and light will live forever in the hearts of her family and our NDP community. Thank you, Keegan and Jayce, for joining us today.
Hello, NDP alumni. Welcome to episode 4 of Forever Seeking. Today I am joined by Jayce Henderson, NDP's Media Content Specialist, NDP Live Moderator, and Digital Video Instructor. Jayce is a communications, marketing, photographer, and video producer expert with over 12 years in the business. In 2008, he graduated from Fordham University at Lincoln Center with a BA in Communications and Media Studies. His career started in New York with ABC News Network, where he shot, wrote, and edited stories for various shows, including World News Now, America This Morning, Good Morning America, Nightline, and World News Tonight. Reaching millions of people across the United States with stories ranging from breaking news to self-profile pieces involving major celebrities, David Muir, Paula Ferris, The View's Sunny Hostin, Robin Roberts, Diane Sawyer, and Charles Gibson are just some of the pioneers in the broadcast industry he was able to work with. In 2014, Jayce returned to his home state of Arizona, where he joined ABC 15 KNXV as a national desk producer for EW Scripps Company. There he worked on a show called The Now and produced content with local on-air personalities Terry Olette, Susan Casper, and Yetta Gibson. Hi Jayce, it is so great to be with you today.
You did a good job with that, Keegan. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
that was about as best I could get. So,
and I also have to say,
I did it in one take.
Yeah. I mean, for any of you who knows video editing, it's kind of hard to do when you do like a huge long monologue like that and you can't cover it and edit it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I have to welcome you for being here today. So thank you for taking the time to come see us here at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's awesome to be up here. We're actually on top of the press box in front of Bemis Field. For those of you watching us on YouTube, this is where we actually have our cameras set up for our NDP live streams for our football games and for our other sporting events. So for those listening on Spotify and Apple Podcast, if you hear traffic in the background, that's kind of what you're hearing.
Absolutely. How did you get your career started in journalism?
So I started my career in journalism back in high school. I was definitely involved with the arts. I loved musical theater, actually, so I kind of started with an acting background, and I actually was in the lead of my musical for my senior year of high school, which is Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, cool.
And I loved music, I loved voice, I loved acting. But then I also loved being a voice for people, and that was usually conveyed through writing. And ironically, I was not the strongest writer when I was in high school. I actually did pretty poorly in a lot of my writing classes in English. It was not my strongest subject. But ironically, that totally took a shift, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But basically, I went and I studied acting for 2 years in Chicago. I went to Columbia College, Chicago. And I ended up taking an internship in 2005 over the summer at Westport Country Playhouse in Westport, Connecticut. And that was actually a really cool experience for me. That was when, if anybody knows theater, Joanne Woodward, who was Paul Newman's wife, was the artistic director of the theater at the time. And it was just a really cool experience. I met a lot of different people. I met actors, but I met journalists too along the way. Just being on the East Coast, when you network with certain people, it happens pretty quickly, and it's actually kind of a small world when you start meeting people. And even though I loved acting so much, I got to a point where I knew that I would always have a love for being on stage, but I also still wanted to give back in a way, and that was through my writing and through being able to tell stories and to have conversations with people, and to also shed light on situations that need truth. And that really is kind of the underlying premise of this entire podcast, is that is what journalism is. Journalism is shedding truth on certain subjects and certain matters, and of course it's a wide array of different ways of doing it. But I knew that eventually, on a professional level, to earn a paycheck every 2 weeks or however, I knew I wanted something consistent. And so I ended up switching my major. So I went from studying acting to studying communications and media studies. So to do that, I actually transferred schools. I went from Columbia College Chicago and transferred to Fordham University at Lincoln Center in New York. And that provided me, just geographically, it was a blessing to me.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was right across the street from ABC News, their headquarters, which is on Columbus and 66th Street. And I was talked into by my counselor at the time during my junior year to walk into ABC and just go to their internship fair. So they basically have this huge one-night event where you can walk in and you can basically give out your resume to a ton of different shows. There's Good Morning America, there was Nightline, there was World News Now, there was World News with Charles Gibson at the time. Charles Gibson was the anchor, and there's also a lot of different departments of ABC that you could work in. There's .com, there's so there was a lot of different ways of being involved in journalism that I wasn't completely sure yet how I was going to fit into it, but and I wasn't really expecting anything out of it. I walked into an internship fair thinking, okay, this is just for interviewing practice sake, and lo and behold, I actually did not hear anything from anyone for about a year after that internship fair, and I finally got a call on my senior year from World News, and they asked if I was still interested in being an intern. So I was, one, surprised by the fact that they kept my resume, because I never knew that they would actually keep it for that long. And two, it just opened my eyes up to a whole new world of possibilities for me that I didn't really knew existed yet. Just because with age, when you're young,
Sure, yeah.
You don't think of those possibilities as much until they actually happen. And so when I actually started interning for the show, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the fact that you can actually go out and report to the world, report to people on certain matters that you're passionate about. One of my biggest passions at that time, and still is today, is just the environmental related news. That was really big for me. Also, just like ethical standards of like animal abuse and stuff like that was like something that really hit home for me. I'm a huge animal lover, and so as small of subjects those are, even though environmental reporting is kind of turned into, I don't know, some people roll their eyes because they feel like it doesn't exist, but it's something that definitely needs attention, so I knew that that was my outlet. I knew that that was something
Sure.
that I could actually use, my going as an intern, going into it, I could offer ideas and pitch story ideas to producers and possibly have them be picked up. So after about 2 semesters of interning with World News, I graduated from Fordham in 2008. ABC immediately hired me on as a staff producer for the early morning programming. So anyone who's up at all hours of the night, they start with World News Now, which is usually about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they go all the way until about 4:30 in the morning with America This Morning. And then Good Morning America comes on after your local news. And so I worked for all 3 of those major programs. So that's kind of how I ended up into a producing role. And that was my first job out of college. More of that, I guess, later to come with,
Sure, yeah.
where I ended up going after that. I decided to come back to Arizona in 2014 and work for KNXV here, but we'll get to more of that here in a little bit.
Sure. Well, that's fascinating. I had no idea that you actually pursued musical theater for a while. Like, obviously, I didn't know we had that in common in that way.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting because I can agree with you with the sense of finding your voice. That's why I never really wanted to go into acting as a first and foremost what I want to do, because obviously, one of the reasons we really got along so well was we both wanted to do, I'm more in entertainment, film, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But obviously we got off, when we met and everything, it was a really nice way to kind of bond over that. And so I just had no idea that you also did some acting. I mean, it makes sense knowing you that the thing that drew you to a lot of it was to draw to journalism was the idea of telling some stories that you found important.
Yeah.
And so that brings up, so why did you choose to come here? What kind of led you to that?
So when I worked for GMA.
Besides clearly trying to work with me on NDP Live, but I know I draw a crowd.
I was in New York and I was like, "There's somebody named Keegan. I gotta go work with him."
Exactly. There's this weird lanky senior that's just begging for.
He's calling my name.
It's just heard it in the void.
Yeah, it is. It's and that's kind of the beauty of life. You think, especially in college today. And I guess this is like a message I want to convey to a lot of students out there that. Yes, of course, like as a college student, it was a dream job and it was a wonderful experience. I never regretted going about the route that I did. But you go through school thinking, with all this pressure, whether you're a doctor or whether you're studying to be a lawyer or you're a journalist going into broadcast, that you have to live up to these huge standards of needing to be somebody really large within the capacity of, okay, well, does it really make sense for you and your lifestyle? And for me, when you produce early morning news, a lot of people don't realize, for us or for anybody who's not a part of the news production process, everyone wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning and they turn on their TV and they're like, oh, the news is on, oh, wow. So they must have just popped into the studio and they just started turning their equipment on and all of a sudden all this stuff is just magically produced.
Oh, it's just all there.
There's people that have been there for hours and hours and hours before that broadcast even starts throughout the night to get the news ready for you, and that was me. And so I did that. I worked overnights for 6 years, and I wouldn't say it fried me. It just, at a certain point, I started realizing I'm living in New York City. I actually lived in Jersey, but I was commuting in every night, and I wasn't even really able to enjoy New York because I was so busy producing 6 days a week.
Sure.
And when you work overnights and then you're going to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and then in the dead middle of winter in New York, the sun goes down at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So sometimes I would never see the sun. I would literally go home when it's dark and I would wake up when it's dark. And I just was like, you know what? Yeah, I could try and find other avenues to produce during the day and stay in New York. But now today I own a home, and that home in New York would be, a $500,000 home, which
absolutely.
At that time, my salary, I wouldn't be able to afford it. So, you just, when you start to get older, you start to assess what is important to you. And I just decided, you know what, my home state, which is Arizona, I wanted to be back here. I wanted to be back in the sun. I wanted to have a normal schedule again and be close to my family. And so that's how I ended up at ABC 15. Because I knew, I was like, all right, well, I know my skill set is in television producing, so I'm just going to go and do what I know best. So that's what I did. I transferred to ABC 15, and I worked there for about 9 months. and worked with great people there. I mean, I worked with Terry Ouellette and Susan Casper and Yetta Gibson, and they're great news personalities that are major hitters here in the Phoenix Valley. But I then still felt like there was something missing out of my life. And I felt that, especially one lesson to learn is in the corporate atmosphere, and I think this goes for a lot of industries, the revolving door is constantly moving.
Oh, yeah.
And there's always somebody bigger and better who's waiting outside of the doors that's going to be able to do your job better and cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't afraid of that, but I was just so like, you know what? I didn't really feel I was getting the reward out of it that I was wanting. And I honestly, my passion was like, you know what? I'd much rather work in a nonprofit atmosphere. That was what first came to my mind. And then I said, you know what? I would love to lend my expertise of what I know so far to people. And what better than to do that than to work with students? And I randomly came upon a job posting that was here at Notre Dame back in 2015 that was to work in the marketing department. And so that's how I ended up here. And so I got here to NDP primarily to work with the Advancement in Communications department. But then I also realized there was this whole new component to building our digital media program, which
Absolutely.
was kind of non-existent.
Oh, no, it definitely did not exist.
So,
I think it amounted to an iPhone and maybe a microphone, but that was typically used by the drama program.
Well, and that was the thing when I first started. My director at the time, who's no longer here anymore, she asked me, she goes, well, you know, I asked her, I said, well, what kind of equipment do you have? Like, what kind of cameras do you have? And she said, well, I think there's some cameras in Mrs. Strolick's class. Go inside her class and see what she has, and we'll just use that. And I literally, you know, I came from working in major broadcast news, working with like $5,000 cameras with, you know, XLR inputs and, you know, nice sound inputs and
so suffice to say, good
yeah,
cameras.
and I walked into Strolick's class and I opened up her cabinet and all I saw were like these like $50 camcorders, and I could tell they were like 5-10 years old, and I was like, and no offense to Strolick, please, like I know she has like great equipment today.
Oh, absolutely, but going from
for what I needed at the time, I was like, I no, we got to put some more equipment together. So luckily they kind of had a little bit of a budget for me, so I put a wish list together and things slowly started to matriculate. Is that a word?
Sure.
Matriculate?
Accumulate, maybe? Listeners, this is what you came here for. This is the best.
I'm
right,
Jayce Henderson, and I have a degree with communications from
Jayce
University.
Henderson creates words.
Matriculate. Accumulate, I guess, is more of the word I want to say. Over the years, we've definitely have grown our resources here at Notre Dame with really amazing equipment that
Absolutely.
our students are now able to use.
Yeah, and jumping in on that, because I also was here when there was nothing, but there was nothing for 4 years, and then we finally got some stuff towards the end there, and it was me, TJ Murphy, and Andrew Davis, and we all were told by
great guys.
They're all right. No, no, I love you guys. You guys are the best. I can only say that because I love them so much.
Okay, so our producer. So Jacob Witherall, who is now our current president of NDP Live, is sitting here,
a word.
And he is an amazing producer because he backs me up, right? So he checks and fact checks me.
But I don't think it means what you want it to mean.
But what
it says to enroll a member of a body.
Okay, no. Okay, so that's not the word I was wanting. I was wanting
not at all, but you did get a word.
Okay, all right.
So you picked a word from a hat, and we're going to pretend it means what you want it to mean. So anyway, going back to roasting TJ and Andrew.
Oh my goodness.
But no, we all decided we all were into film, and I think Ginny Temple was the person who brought it to us, and this idea of saying, hey, prepare for this, because we're starting to get this thing on the light. We're starting to get this thing coming in. We have this guy coming in. And I think you're going to like him. He has some really great experience. I think it's going to be really great for you guys your senior year. And I remember meeting you for the first time and feeling like, because as much as I love film, I've been like teaching myself for most of this stuff. And then to finally to have someone that was like, oh, by the way, do you know all this? And to go, no, I know nothing. Please teach me. Like, it was just so refreshing to have somebody that come in and just learn from you and being able to have something, but low-key, especially seeing what's going on now,
Yeah.
it was very sad. Like, I'm like, I want this.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted this.
Like, you want to come back to high school
I want to
again.
come back to high school again, not for everything else. The other stuff can just, like, go over there, but I'll just stick with you in, like, the studio, and we'll just hang out.
All right.
It's, you know, with COVID and everything, maybe that can be a steady job. Anyway, so seriously, it's grown so much over the years, and it's just, and so, like, kind of what, clearly we've kind of talked about what it took to get here, and obviously I kind of want you to talk about where we are at now, but where do you see this going? Obviously, we're building the Fine Arts Center. We're getting an actual studio that's getting even more equipment and things. And so tell us a little bit about that.
So, so first off, just so everyone's caught up on this conversation, Keegan is actually, I mean, I was the mentor who kind of initiated NDP Live and got it going. But Keegan is the one who spearheaded the whole NDP Live idea. So it was cool when I came in, not having worked with students yet in my career, to meet someone like you who already had this vision. And I'm like, you know, this is amazing. Like this, I was already feeling the reward from what I was doing, because I was just in awe of the ambition and the dream that I was seeing in each of your eyes, because this is something that you guys really wanted to do. And I was like, this is amazing. This is so cool. So, so I mean, we literally started, when I started with you, it was just you, Andrew, and TJ.
Yep.
Maybe a few other students on campus that had interest in media, but, and that was what was really funny about it, is there was a lot of parents who had come to me and be like, well, I have, you know, a daughter or a son who has, you know, a really nice camera, let's just say, you know, a couple $1,000. And they would say, oh, well, you know, my child just does this as a hobby. And I go, well, there's so many other professional careers out there that they could actually take this to a whole new level.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't just have to be a doctor or a lawyer or you know, study finance. If this is something that they really want to expand their artistic talent on, then let's make this part of the curriculum.
To at least give them the opportunity to be able to explore that part of what they enjoy as a hobby, and possibly give them the skills to be able to take it professionally.
And for many people who know digital journalism, there are many, many, many fine high schools throughout the nation, public and private, who already have really state-of-the-art television programs for students. And that is my recommendation to all of my students today, is to start early. It's competitive to move from college into a major career in journalism.
Yeah.
So I always recommend start your reels now. If you're a producer and you're an editor, go ahead and put those reels together. If you want to be on air, go ahead and just do fake mock on-air video recordings of yourself and put those on your own YouTube channel. In safe ways, of course, and extend those links out, I guess, you know, to, as you're applying to colleges and especially journalism schools, they're going to appreciate the fact that you're already on top of it. You're already thinking about branding yourself. You're already thinking about, you know, thinking outside of the box, so that you're already competitive going into college. So hopefully when you're exiting college and trying to get that first job, it's not going to be a complete shell shock.
Absolutely.
So, so right now, today, fast forward 5 years, NDP Live is still a club, so we offer it as a club, so students who can't take classes can still be a part of our program on a time that is convenient for them. So I'm always a huge person that never says no to anybody. If they want to be a part of it, I will find every way to allow them to make it work. But we've also created an intro class, a digital video intro class, and an advanced video class as well. So the intro class, really, you know, my mission, I teach both classes. My mission is to teach them how to write, shoot, and edit video so that they understand the fundamentals of producing. And then once they hit the advanced class, my president and producer here behind the camera, Jacob, can vouch for this. My advanced class works on what we call our annual giving day, Mardi Gras annual giving day, which is in February. Last year was our second year doing it, and it's this really cool opportunity where our students, for 12 hours, produce a 12-hour live broadcast, and 60% of it is pre-taped. The other 40% is actually live. So the students have to work on an actual script. They have to actually, come in at 5 in the morning to be ready to go on the air by 6 or 7 if we want to reach East Coast.
For it.
So yeah, and it's just a really cool, fun experience. I think Jacob can again, it's just like one of those things where all the students are like, yeah, we really love Annual Giving Day because it's the closest thing to putting on a live broadcast that you can get, from actually, just walking into a major television studio and seeing how it works.
Absolutely. And I know, just coming from my own perspective of, helping, trying in some attempt to be able to, lay some groundwork and trying to get people excited about it. It's something that, development professionally is something that I'm really passionate about. I love development. I love the idea of going into, in the film world, being able to go and find writers and scripts and find this is the basis of a really good idea. And it's the same thing I like to apply what I felt back when, and I can see where it kind of stemmed from. But what's been so amazing to me is paying attention to NDP Live as it's gone on and seeing the little stamps of personality. Some people coming in and putting in, they want to do a talk show. They want to do this stuff. They want to go make videos that are more narrative. And it's been so interesting to see this. And obviously, I'm just so blessed to be able to, have that in my heart of being a little small part of that at the beginning, and being able to have that and to see it continue and to be able to come back and see essentially these generations of presidents and teams that we see in the office, like these pictures of people, some of whom I know and some of them who I have no clue who they are. And that's really exciting to me. That's something that extends beyond that and hopefully gives people an opportunity that I didn't have as much of, that I had to kind of create for myself. And it's hopefully giving people opportunity that they don't have to create for themselves, that they can then focus on, as you're saying, creating reels, having this stuff and being able to start better early.
Well, what's exciting about that now going forward is the fact that we are building a $7 million fine arts center, which is called the St. Catherine of Bologna Art Center. It is almost finished. For those of you who have been in and around the Notre Dame area and have seen it, it's massive. It's a 20,000 plus square foot facility.
And it's real.
And
it actually happens. It's actually happening.
I know, there's so many people that have heard of it and heard the dream of it, and they never saw it.
To all my fellow alumni who have been in the arts, it's happening.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's there. It's right over there. There's scaffolding and bricks. I can attest.
I will make sure
it's not photoshopped. It's there.
I'll make sure I put in an aerial drone shot that we recently took over this part so people can see it.
They need proof.
But yeah, so in that fine arts center, there's going to be, I'll get to NDP Live good part last, but there'll be a full-on flexible stage area so that we can actually have theater productions and other meetings that we might want to include students to be a part of in groups, large groups. And there'll also be classrooms for guitar, for choir, for our jazz, and then on top of that, we now have an NDP Live television studio that will be going in that building as well. And it's the studio itself, I believe, will be about 1,200 square foot. It will include state-of-the-art engineering that we've brought on some experts from Sneaky Big, who is a big production company here in Northeast
Shout out to Sneaky
Scottsdale.
Big.
And we brought in some of their expertise and said, here's our budget. We want to come as close to your guys' quality as possible. How do we do that? Because the NDP Live studio in the building is actually on the first floor, and above will be our guitar class. So immediately I was like, all right, there's got to be some major soundproofing that happens in this room. And so they went a few extra miles to make sure that this space is truly a television studio that we can use for all kinds of stuff at different times of the day without being interrupted. There'll be a green screen wall as well as a permanent set space so that we can actually have couches and places where we can actually sit down and talk to people like you and I right now are doing. And there'll be an actual control room with glass that our producers and director students can sit in with, they can direct and operate software that we're in the middle of obtaining as we speak. So from my understanding, it's close to $1 million price tag. And it's, for high school students, not very many can say they would have that kind of an experience.
Oh, yeah.
At
not many college people can
right?
say that they have like I can't say that I've had any sort of that experience.
But I'm proud of it. So my dream eventually, just to kind of finish this question, is I want a team of digital journalism students of at least 50 to 100 students who really want to be a part of it, understand how to write, understand how to shoot, understand how to edit, go out and be a voice for our community. There's so much that's happening here in the Northeast Scottsdale area of Phoenix, and be a voice and be go out there and just tell stories. And I think that the biggest thing that is really important for students today is to just tell the truth of certain subjects, of certain things that are happening in the world that they might have passion and interest in, but they don't really know how to bring it together. So that's where I come in. That's where I am going to help, fine tune that and make sure that they know how to do that.
Well, and speaking of which, this is a perfect transition with this, but obviously you have a very close connection with students. Some you've seen from freshmen to seniors, some of which you got for a year or two, and I'm sure you've seen a ton of people come and go, and obviously you've seen a lot of them grow, you have a lot of skills there, and so what have you noticed as you've seen students grow, especially as this program has gone along, whether it's the type of students that's starting to attract, or things like that? Is there like skills that you're seeing that pop up, or ones that people develop, or skills that you try to teach? Like what's kind of...
I think you yourself is a perfect reflection of what I'm proud of seeing coming out of Notre Dame. And it's people like you, it's young individuals like you who are actually taking this and saying, hey, it's not just a hobby, it's actually something that I want to pursue professionally. And you guys are going out and you're doing it. So Notre Dame is a wonderful school. We're strong academically, we're strong in our faith, we're strong in our athletics. But the other thing that I really want us to get stronger at is our fine arts.
Absolutely.
And a part of fine arts is journalism and television. So that's the thing that I'm most proud of is seeing students like you, seeing students like Andrew Davis and Andrew Knoll, who was our president of NDP Live last year. Even though his interest is not in television, he still does it on the side and wants to pursue it as a side hobby. But they're walking away with lessons on, like I said, the fundamentals of knowing how to write for television, knowing how to shoot, knowing how to edit, knowing how to interview, knowing how to ask the right questions, knowing how to research, and actually getting the right information. So yeah.
And that's just absolutely fantastic. And I think that's just such an important thing, and thank you for your compliments. I'm definitely going to skip past them. But it's something that I think is a really important aspect of NDP Live, even when we were creating, was trying to do that, was trying to say, all right, let's try to create a group where people can network, they can find like-minded people, and they can find like-minded people with passion. Now, going further with that, obviously, you've made a lot of, just talking with you now, like a lot of decisions that obviously changed a lot of aspects of your life, and whether it was changing the focus or realizing that there are stories that you want to tell about that you've seen from others and things like that. Now, is there one like moment in your life that you can think about that kind of you use as a guidepost, something that you kind of reflect on and kind of see that as that was a moment in my life that helped define, my perspective or the stories I want to tell, the reason why I want to shift, whether it was shift from being an actor to being more, I want to actually help people tell these stories?
Well, I think that, in just kind of more in reference to where our world is at today, the biggest thing that upsets me the most when I listen to a lot of candid conversations and what you hear on the news so much, and of course this kind of crosses into a political conversation a little bit, but is this whole idea of fake news. And And yeah, there's a degree of news that is it being accurately reported. There's some questions about that. Is news today in the way that it's broadcasted different than, say, the Walter Cronkite era? Everyone would agree that regardless if networks like CNN or Fox were right or wrong in the way that they present their news, there is now a editorial opinion injection into the news as it's being delivered.
Yes.
And that's what people are becoming upset about. And I understand that, and I disagree with that. I think that obviously news today has to be left up to the viewer on what their opinion is about it. However, there is also an importance in my job today, and that is the reason why journalism is so important to me, is I want to teach students that they need to help change that back to what journalism used to be. And that was obtaining the facts and simply presenting those facts in a neutral fashion, so that that's all you're doing. You're presenting the news. You're not adding your belief or opinion.
It's not an editorial in that sense.
Exactly. So that is where I feel it's important today. I mean, we as a democracy, as a nation, depend on journalism.
Yes.
Journalism and our journalists today, who are well respected, it is a check and balance system. That is how we keep people that we need to ask questions to in check, so that we can accurately inform the public and our community of what is accurate and what isn't.
Yeah.
So for someone to just plainly say it's fake news, okay, it might be fake, but let's not just take something that was just regurgitated and thrown into our ears and just believe it and walk away from it and be like, oh yeah, it's fake news. You know, like, we've kind of fallen into this,
well, it's the soundbite culture. It's the idea of just hearing and repeating a soundbite that sounds good, but not necessarily doing any follow-up, not necessarily going any further.
So it's important for our youth today to understand that it is a gift in our democracy system and being a citizen of the United States to be able to ask questions. And rightfully so, they have every right to do that.
Absolutely. That's part of the whole part of being an American is being able to ask questions.
And I think that's part of a lot of people's interests and passions in going into journalism is you are there to press and ask hard questions even when it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
And for some reason today, even when it comes to disputes amongst our youth and our views, we're not used to hearing each other. We don't want to hear each other because the minute we don't hear something we don't like, we disagree with it, and then we have a confrontation about it instead of actually just deliberating about it.
Exactly. Instead of actually having an argument, it's more of a I'm right and you're stupid rather than here's my opinion, what's yours?
Yeah.
And understanding the idea that just because someone presents a different opinion than you doesn't mean that either your opinion is invalid or that somehow your opinion or their opinion has to change by the end of this conversation. It's simply about trying to reach the other person and trying to understand that. And I think that is really important. And I think that that's such an admirable goal that I'm glad that you're imbuing in kind of a younger generation, because I think it's something that is sorely lacking, and I wish that it would come back ASAP. So we like to end each podcast with this question, and in keeping with the name of the podcast, what is something in your life that you are forever seeking? Who is a saint that possesses the values you seek to model your life after?
So I would say that the saint that I would model my life after would be St. Francis of Assisi, and that's because he was a patron saint of animals and the environment. That actually goes back to what my original love was when I first started studying journalism, was reporting on ethical issues. Particularly there was one subject that I was studying, and I had to write a paper in college that was on animal slaughter. And I know it's kind of a like crazy, like, you know, subject to talk about,
Sure.
but it was something that struck to me that I wanted to study, and as a journalist I wanted to shed light on about what happens in slaughterhouses across the country. And so and I'm a meat eater. I love meat. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with eating meat, but in particular with this, there's ethical standards. I feel that like our animals like should be treated fairly before they go to slaughter. And I've always been, and so that one moment was when I decided, God, I got to be some sort of journalist and report on issues like this, because not very many people know like what actually goes on behind closed doors and how they get their food and how it ends up on their table, and what those animals had to go through in order to, you know, endure, you know, just sort of the trauma and like the craziness, and yeah, they're livestock, but they also have beating hearts, and like I think anything else in this world, they deserve respect, you know, even if they're meant to, you know, be for food consumption. So that would be, I think, the one patron saint that I just resemble and like just really feel that is the closest to me and represents me. And also, like I said, I mean, just I'm a lover of the planet. I'm a lover of the environment. I'm a lover of making sure that, you know, I do believe in a heaven, but I also like to think that the planet that we are living on is also heaven. You know, like this is...
Well, it needs to be treated. It needs to be treated in
right,
a way
like,
that's
I mean, this
respectful
is,
of it and not just destroying it in the way of we have to be able to live with it and evolve with it.
Yeah. So that's, I think this is something that I feel if we can try and accurately inform people of things through journalism and through our artistic talents of whatever that may be, we can hopefully get people more on board with wanting to protect the things that are dear to us. That, you know, we're sitting here in the middle of the desert and it's gorgeous. It's
absolutely.
Why would anybody want to come and destroy this, or you know, eventually make our planet inhabitable and just assume, well, let's invest our dollars to go explore Mars instead. And I'm like, well, let's use those dollars and actually try and improve the place we're currently living on.
Absolutely.
So anyways, I guess to kind of put a more modern spin to a spiritual question of what you asked, I think that's just kind of where I am at.
Yeah, I love St. Francis as well. That's somebody who really has spoken to me a lot lately in the sense that my fiance, she really introduced me to St. Francis in a more direct way. I had heard about him, had those aspects, but I never really did much research into it. And last winter, I was visiting her and her family in Italy, and she took me to Assisi for Christmas.
Wow.
And it was one of those beautiful experiences where it's kind of, again, obviously in the U.S., we have American saints, we have things like that, but for us, I feel it's easier to think of them as mystical, like kind of the way we think of myths. It's how we think of, like, you know, King Arthur, these standards to live to, but not really real.
Right.
It's so weird to then go up to a tomb and being like, yeah, this person you've heard about, they're in there.
Yeah.
And just being like, well, this person actually existed. And then going and finally putting these stories to actual places. And then when you read about them, and it just really gave me this sense of perspective, in the sense that, you know, what I love about St. Francis is now we really praise him. We really, you know, celebrate his life. And a lot of people, like, you have the Franciscan friars, you have these amazing groups. But when he was starting, he was kind of a rebel in that day. Like not intentionally. That wasn't what his intention was. He wasn't trying to be trying to say there's something wrong with how you're doing things. He just felt this is the way to live. And some people found that antagonistic. Others found that appealing.
Right.
And what I find it very appealing with his idea of significance and the idea of simplicity and the idea of loving the world, and that everything matters and that everything's a part of it, and the idea that, but moreover, the fact that he never tried to debate with you about it. He never tried, like, from what I've read, he never tried to be like, oh no, like my way's better than your way. No, he just kind of would look people in the eye, and it's like, well, I'm kind of sorry you feel that way, but I'm going to pray for you. I love you, and I don't care if you mock me. I love you, and it's like it's this always reaching a hand out, and there are tons of guys with him who are like, man, what's going on? Like, like they're making fun of us. Like maybe we should tone it down a little bit. And he's like, okay, you can. Like he's saying, why would we do that?
Right.
Why would we do that just because somebody else does it? This is temporary. God is forever.
Yeah.
And I really admire that because it was never a sense of chauvinism. It wasn't for effect. Yes, it had an effect, but it was never for an effect. It was just trying to live it out.
Yep.
And I think that so often we forget about that, and we forget about the idea that it's not about what we say, it's what we do. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, as you're talking about with journalism, is we can say this stuff all day long, and we can say, how come more people don't know about the info? But if we're not out there and actually talking about it, and actually trying to bring it to light, trying to do this stuff, it's just a lot of talk.
Sure.
And it's also like the idea of, I think, Catholic principles. It's the same idea there. We can preach all day long. We can say these things all day long. But at the bottom line is, unless you're seeking to actually live that way and be attracted by how you live, no change will ever be made. Because no change is made by words alone. It's made by words and action.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be that way. At least that's how I see it.
That's some pretty powerful stuff you just said.
Almost enough to end this on. And so, thank you, Jayce, for joining us on as second speaker on NDP's Forever Seeking podcast. Thank you so much for having me and everything. This has been such a great time talking with you.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you, and then I also want to congratulate you and your fiance.
Thank you so much.
It's crazy when Keegan reached out to me. We just recently started talking a few weeks ago. He's like, yeah, I'm engaged. And I'm like, what, Keegan? Like to me, I'm still thinking Keegan in senior high school,
Oh, so am I.
And then like all of a sudden 4 years flashes by and I'm like, what, you're engaged? So
I'm definitely not an adult, no. Like that's definitely, like I had to think about my own age like prior to this. That's not even a joke. That's literally before the camera started rolling. I had to count like.
That is awesome. So everyone here at Notre Dame is, we all love you, and we just want to congratulate you on your engagement.
Thank you.
And we're just happy for you. We're happy to see, where your life continues to go and grow, and you're out in LA. So
thank you so much.
I know with COVID things are kind of complicated, but you know what? I think there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
And you're a very bright individual, and you're going to get through it. So I have no hesitation and doubt at all that you're going to do more and bigger and amazing things out there.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jayce. It really means a lot to me.
Yeah, no problem.
And that's it. I got nothing.
We're good. I can edit with that.
Thank you, Jayce and Keegan, for joining us for this episode of Forever Seeking. I would like to encourage all of our alumni to stay connected with us at www.ndpsaints.org/alumni/stay-connected. Thank you again to the Laporte family for sponsoring this episode in memory of Kelly Luther. Please continue to pray for the Luther family, Kurt, Keegan, and Kendall. We invite you to subscribe to Notre Dame Prep on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and watch for our next episode with an NDP teacher who is truly a light to all who meet her, Brooke Dauphiné.